You're traveling Story Road, Utah. Just north of the Bryce Canyon National Park junction on US Highway 89 is a quiet, western-looking town with an amazing story involving quilts. Now, lots of folks sleep under quilts in one of Panguitch's fine bed and breakfasts or motels, but that's not the reason Panguitch has a quilt walk park. Here's the story.
In 1864, a group of pioneers was sent eastward from Parowan, Utah, over the old Spanish Trail to establish a settlement, which they named Panguitch, meaning fish in the Paiute language. Panguitch sits at an altitude of 6,660 feet and has a very short growing season. So late that summer, just as the settlers were hoping to harvest their first crops, they were surprised by an early killing frost and heavy snow. They tried harvesting the immature green wheat heads and boiling and eating them, but it tasted awful and was not nourishing. They tried to live off fish and wild game, but they couldn't get near enough to feed the settlers. Their last hope to avoid starvation was to send an expedition 40 miles west over the 8,000-foot mountain pass back to Parowan, where they could get flour and bring it back. All they would have to keep them from freezing to death in the frigid nights on the high mountains was their quilts. 7 men volunteered to make the perilous journey. One of them was Thomas Jefferson Adair, 50, hunter and sharpshooter in the Seminole Wars in Florida, but later lost 3 members of his family in a battle with cholera in Mount Pisgah, Iowa. They started off with a light wagon pulled by 2 teams of oxen, but by the time they got up to the 7,000-foot level of Lower Bear Valley, the snow was so deep the oxen could no longer pull through it. So they abandoned the wagon and started off on foot. But the crust on the snow would not support their weight, and they kept falling through into waist-deep snow. So they tried breaking a trail through the snow. The next part we don't know, but I imagine they formed a single file, the lead man clawing through and stomping down the snow, creating a narrow slit, which those following could widen into a trench, and then trading places one after another as the lead man became exhausted. But we do know the process was so slow that very soon they began to doubt they could ever make it in time to save either themselves or their families back in Panguitch. Thomas Jefferson Adair and the Bear Valley Boys sing, "Get us over this mountain, Lord."
I fought Seminoles in Florida, held Alabama mobs at bay, fought cholera at Mount Pisgah, and lost 3 of my family to the grave. But the sound of me staring back at me made me shake down to my bones. I lose Mary and all the children too. If we don't bring some food back home, won't you get us over this mountain, Lord, over this great divide?
Finally decided they needed divine help. So one of the men took a quilt out of his bedroll, spread it over the snow, and they knelt in a circle, each taking a turn to pray. At some point in that process, one of them realized, as long as we're on the quilt, we aren't sinking through the snow. The quilt spread their weight over a larger surface area, preventing them from breaking through the crust. So they took out several quilts and laying them one after another on the snow surface and pulling the rear quilt up to lay ahead of the first again and again, quilt walked over the mountain. They made it to Parowan, put 100-pound sacks of flour on their backs, quilt walked back to the wagon, and drove back to Panguitch, arriving in time to save the settlements from starvation.
That's why Panguitch has a Quilt Walk Park and a Quilt Walk Festival the second week of June. Come walk in their footsteps on Story Road, Utah.
Won't you get us over this mountain, Lord, over this great divide? Part this frozen sea, get me and my brothers to the other side. We trusted you in coming here, so won't you make the pathway clear? Won't you get us over this mountain, Lord? Don't let our journey end here.
Just 25 miles northwest of Bryce Canyon National Park, Panguitch is a perfect day trip or overnight adventure. Come stay at the Red Brick Inn bed and breakfast for the feel of small town living with big city taste. Take in a movie and ice cream at the Scoops from the Past Gem Theater. Have dinner at the Cowboys Smokehouse Cafe. Pick up a souvenir at Cowboy Collectibles. Browse smoking hot antiques. You may find something perfect for that little corner of your family room. And visit Quilt Walk Park, where you'll learn more about the 7 men who saved the town from starvation back in 1864. They're the reason Panguitch is still here today.